The general who pushed him up, the wildest thing about that whole mess, the stuff that nearly cost me my son and ended a 15-year cover, is how it all started with a joke. A simple, stupid joke about my rank. Because apparently, to them, I was just Mike from maintenance, the guy who wiped up their spilled coffee, an old ghost in gray coveralls. My real name is Ethan Vance, and for 8 years I moved through the elite Sentinel command base in Quantico like a spirit, unnoticed, deliberately invisible. It was easier that way, safer. I had to be safe because my 17-year-old son Leo was the only thing that mattered, and the only reason I'd traded my 4-star general's uniform for a rusty mop bucket. My wife Clara, she was a brilliant intelligence analyst, and she was killed 15 years ago because she saw too much, connecting the dots on a corrupted operation called Black Tide. The men who ordered her death, they warned me. Disappear, Vance, or the boy is next. So I disappeared, shedding the name, the rank, the medals, becoming Mike, the quiet janitor. My invisibility was my shield, but sometimes old habits just kick in, Like that Tuesday morning, when the command center was in chaos over a tactical dilemma, some hostage extraction gone sideways in the Mediterranean. I was just emptying the trash, but the officers were arguing, throwing out bad ideas, risking lives. And I saw it, right there on the holographic map, the one perfect overlooked route through a narrow canyon. I didn't say a word, of course, but as I wheeled my cart out, I just nudged the handle slightly, just a millimeter, pointing it right at the canyon mouth. The operations captain, a smart guy named Hargrove, he caught the glance, muttered, "Wait a minute. What about that western gorge?" And just like that, lives were saved, a crisis averted, and nobody even noticed Mike from maintenance had given the order. Well, almost nobody. There was this young Lieutenant Zara Kalon. Sharp as a tack she was. She caught the cart nudge, and that was the beginning of the end for my piece. She'd linger while I was cleaning the trophy cases, those glass boxes holding the sanitized history of the command. "Mr. Vance," she'd say, her eyes drilling into me, "you move like you were trained by the Corps of Engineers, not custodial services." I'd just shrug. "Learned it all on YouTube, ma'am. Gotta keep these floors in shape, But she kept digging, asking about a certain decorated colonel who vanished after Operation Black Tide. The coincidence of the last name, the military posture, the quiet authority I couldn't always fully suppress. She was connecting the threads I'd spent a decade and a half weaving apart. The real trouble landed when Admiral Hayes, the snake who stole my plan for Black Tide and used it as his launch pad to the stars, announced his surprise inspection. Hayes was pure political poison, arrogant, believing his own rewritten history. He built his career on my sacrifice, my strategy, my dead wife. The whole base was frantic, polishing floors that were already spotless. He was going to use this inspection, I knew it, to find any weak link, any dissenting voice, and crush it. I was worried about Zara, worried about Hargrove, but I never thought he'd go for Leo. It happened the day of the final review. A text message, anonymous, chillingly simple. "Tell your father to stop asking questions. We have the boy." I nearly dropped my mop. Leo, my gentle, brilliant kid obsessed with astrophysics, completely civilian. He was the collateral. Hayes wasn't just here to secure his past. He was here to eliminate my future. I threw my janitor shirt onto the floor of the maintenance closet, felt good actually, and burst into Hargrove's office. I didn't knock. "My son is gone, Captain. Hayes took him. I need to move, now." Hargrove just stared at me, then at the frantic alert on his secured console about an unauthorized civilian escorting a minor into a high-security zone. He swallowed, recognizing the setup immediately. "General Vance," he whispered, finally using my real title, "you can't go in there as Mike from maintenance. Hayes will have you arrested before you cross the threshold." But I had to. Hayes was waiting in the main conference room, the place where all the command's big decisions were made. Leo was standing rigid beside him, flanked by 2 goons in bad suits. The tension in that room, you could cut it with a butter knife. I walked in behind Hargrove, but I was still Mike. Hayes saw me, and that smirk, that awful, smug little smirk that had always been my absolute undoing, spread across his face. "Ah, Mike," he drawled, his voice loud enough for the 100 nervous officers to hear. "I believe we have a sanitation issue here." "Tell me, old man. What's your rank in the custodial arts? Master of the mop?" The room tittered, nervous laughter filling the air. I didn't flinch. I looked at him, not at the insignia on his shoulder, but right into those dead, calculating eyes. Then I looked at Leo, a silent message passing between us. "It's okay, son. Watch this." I took a deep, steady breath, and my voice, the voice that hadn't commanded a battalion in 15 years, but which still carried the weight of every medal and every buried truth, rang out. "Colonel General, sir." The laughter died instantly. Every single face froze. Hayes's jaw dropped, but he recovered quickly, his eyes now blazing with pure hatred. "The uniform doesn't make the man, Vance. You abandoned your post, you let your career die, and you will leave my base now, or face desertion charges." "You're right, Admiral," I said, stepping closer, ignoring the two goons tensing up. "The uniform doesn't make the man, but the truth does. And the truth is, you didn't just steal my plan for Black Tide. You stole my wife's life when she found the financial evidence proving your corruption, and now you've kidnapped my son to silence me." Suddenly the door swung open again. It wasn't Hargrove, it was Zara Kalon, holding a thick red-stamped folder. She marched straight up to Hayes. "Admiral Hayes," she announced, her voice firm despite the chaos, "I'm submitting a formal request for immediate investigation into potential obstruction of justice and falsification of military records related to Operation Black Tide, effective immediately. And sir, this file contains the original unredacted audit report Clara Vance filed 15 years ago." Hayes turned pale. He knew Zara couldn't have done that alone. Who gave you access to that?" he stammered. I stepped up beside Zara, close enough for Hayes to smell the cheap floor wax on my shirt. "My friends, Admiral," I said quietly. "The ones who've been waiting for my signal for 15 years. You see, while you were building your empire, I was just documenting every promotion, every corrupt contract, every slip of the tongue in classified briefings I was hired to clean up. Your career, Admiral, wasn't built on success. It was built on me, and I kept the receipts." The room erupted. Two MPs, who had been guarding the door, suddenly moved past me and clapped cuffs on Hayes's wrists. He didn't fight. He just stared at me, a beaten man. "You played the long game, Vance," he spat. "It was never a game," I corrected him, looking past Hayes's shoulder, locking eyes with Leo. The boy looked back, a strange mix of shock, terror, and finally, pride. It was a mission. A week later, I was standing in Captain Hargrove's, now Colonel Hargrove, office. I was clean-shaven, wearing my own civilian clothes, and my paperwork was finally, legally, cleanly done. The DOD had reopened Clara's case. Hayes was facing a military tribunal. Justice, slow, bitter, but finally here. "So, General," Hargrove said, leaning back, a genuine, relieved smile on his face. "What now? SecNav is offering you a full reinstatement, back pay, whatever you want." I glanced out the window, where Leo was talking animatedly to a college rep, talking about MIT, talking about the future. "You know, Colonel," I said, picking up my old beat-up maintenance jacket, "I think I'll take that visiting professorship they offered me at the Naval Academy. Teaching young minds about the true cost of command. Keeps me close to Leo, too," Hargrove laughed. "The janitor general becomes a professor." "You really are one of a kind, Vance." "Just adapting to mission requirements," I replied, tossing the jacket into the trash, finally letting go of Mike from maintenance. As I walked out, I passed the young officers in the hallway. They all snapped to attention, saluting with a newfound respect that had nothing to do with my old rank, and everything to do with what I'd given up, and what I'd fought for. But the real question, the one that keeps me up at night and the one I want you to answer, is this: was I right to disappear? Was I justified in abandoning my duty and my identity for 15 years to protect my son, knowing the cost was letting a corrupt man rise to power? Would you have pushed that mop? Tell me what you think in the comments below. Let's talk about the line between personal duty and public justice. And don't forget to like and subscribe, because I've got a feeling my time at the Naval Academy is going to lead to a few more stories. Maybe even one about how I finally managed to clean all the corruption out of that place.